Welcome back to It's Not So Late Show, and I am honored to be joined by Greg Frontiero of Noowave Coffee. Greg, thank you so much for this impromptu planning of this whole podcast. And I got to ask you, where did you get the idea to make a coffee?
Long story short, I got super burned out in New York City. A lot of drinking, a lot of drugs, a lot of fun stuff, but was leading to sort of me compensating with that with like energy drinks and coffee. We're talking like 2 5 hours, a Red Bull, a cup of coffee, like every day for call it 3 to 5 years. And I put in the article that I sort of aged like a president over 2 terms. Like you could see I've always like looked kind of young for my age. I'm 37, but I look like 40 years old at 25 or whatever it was. So, when I came back from that, I like left the country. I lived in Thailand for a little bit. I eat, pray, loved. I try to like not drink or do anything. No caffeine. And then when I came back, I sort of like intentionally was trying to find like a healthier way to do that whole thing. So it led me to find nootropics. For those who are not familiar with the term nootropics, it's you can think of them like brain vitamins. They're cognitive enhancers, and so it's a real rabbit hole. I was on all the Reddit threads and kind of going through them, but one of the most OG, easy, low risk stacks that you can do in the nootropic world is L-theanine and caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about the ingredients, I'm sure, but basically that was kind of like my first foray into it, and I would add stuff and I would take stuff out of this stack forever and ever. But I kept coming back to this, like, L-theanine and raw cacao with my coffee and drank it for a long time. And then met some friends this year on an online writing course, which again, I'm sure we'll talk about, who just sort of kind of, while talking about it in the course, I think one of them sent me money to like make it for them. And then like kind of clicked that like, oh, this could be my business that I always wanted to start. So the coffee has been in consumption mode for me for like the last 5 years. Even though we're a 6-month-old company and selling it, like I've just been drinking it forever. It works really well.
Right. So it seems like you have a really great understanding of chemistry, right? Because chemistry has a big part in creating obviously coffee. So do you have a background in maybe some sciences where you have an understanding of how to mix ingredients?
No, it's so funny you asked that. I just tweeted yesterday. I have a friend in England that I met through this writing class, and he was talking about teaching himself biochemistry, and I was like, "That's a fucking great idea. I should do that." I'm like a what do you call it? Like an enthusiast with all this stuff. So I know probably more than the average American, definitely. But am I a scientist? No. This is just like it's a hobby. This is like what I'm really into. So I love biohacking. I've tried everything and anything that you can do, legal and illegal. And it's just like I'm an enthusiast. And so when doing this kind of stuff, obviously I'm checking with people that know us better than me. I have a lot of science, well, not a lot of science friends, but I have enough science friends that would like not let me make something bad. So reached out to them. I was just talking to one on email right now, actually, about getting some third-party lab testing done, which I'm really excited about. And yeah. I mean, if you like go ahead and do your cursory research on L-theanine, that's the only like tricky ingredient that someone might not know. Like there's coffee and raw cacao, which I think people are familiar enough with. L-theanine is just a green tea amino acid.
Okay. So where is that found? Where can you find L-theanine?
Well, this is the funny part. So like we're a very American-made company, not by any like political means, just happens to be. But L-theanine, if you think about green tea, where is the best place to get green tea?
I personally do not know.
It would be China. And so
Okay.
like that's where all the tea leaves are. That's where like all the stuff. So it's like kind of there's this weird association with like importing things from China that it's like low quality. But if you think about tea, you really want to get it from Asia is like the best place to get it from. However, that being said, we work with a American company that's sort of like reputable in the supplement space.
Right.
And so we made sure that it's not like any old janky L-theanine. It's it costs us a lot more, but it's
Right.
fun.
So how did you get these connections in this industry? So I'm going to actually preface that with another question. What do you have a background in? Like, did you go to college? I'm assuming. So if you did, what did you get like majors in with the background?
Man, like, and you're in college, I would love to talk to you more about it because I'd love to know the differences between that and now. Like my background's in sales and marketing. I work for tech companies. So I work for Twitter. I worked for Stack Overflow, a company called Yext was my first foray. It did really well. I just been in sales in the tech world for 10 years. And so that's kind of my background. I went to college for communications. I wanted to get into the advertising program just because my dad was in sales. I knew I was going to be in sales. I actually didn't give a shit about school. I was a punk rock kid and we were in bands at the time. And so I was always touring. So I would pick my school schedule around like when my friend's band was going on tour and I could go with them and things like that. So I didn't take it too seriously, but I didn't get into the advertising program. I had like a shockingly low GPA, but really high test scores.
Okay.
That's how because I was very absent. I was always skipping school.
Right.
I was a bad kid. And so don't be like me if you're listening to this, or do, I guess, because I don't know, depends on your goals. But yeah, I sort of just like fell into sales because is what my dad did. It's what I was good at. I'm obviously good at talking. And I then quickly learned that sales is more about listening than talking. And it's really, it's nice to have now that I have my own business. Because yesterday we did our first ever event.
Oh, so can you tell me about this event?
Yeah. So we found out through our friend who makes our shirts. He makes tie-dye shirts. His company's called High Spirit Shirts. And he did an indie flea last month in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's just sort of like a craft fair. And it was awesome and it did really well. And I was just there as a friend hanging out. And I was like, I want to do this. So I asked. And I didn't know how well our like biohacky nootropic coffee would do in like this like candle t-shirt world. And we killed it. We did really well. So it was really cool because it was nice to see, it was nice to see customers trying the coffee in real time.
Yeah.
Seeing them like it. You always, it's for me, mind blowing to me that I made something that people like. Like that was the goal. But when you see it and people actually enjoy it, you're like, oh yeah, like this is good. That's why I drank this for 5 years.
It's what's so rewarding, like with people who are in service industries such as in the coffee or music, you get to see that reaction. And you know what's funny is for me, when your friend Michael Barbieri reached out to me, he's also been on the podcast, he's like, do you want to help promote a coffee? Now I personally don't drink coffee. And then I tried this because I'm like, I have to give it a shot. And this is the first coffee I actually liked. So, I love that reaction that you're getting. So I want to talk about this packaging too. It's really clean. So how did you come up with the color, the blue and the design for the coffee?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like, I'm really proud of our packaging. Actually, it's funny. Like it's probably because I made it, but like, it's very janky to me. Like it's very version 1. We're doing a new one. It's going to be much better. But the theme of it will be likely the same. Like I wanted it to stand out on shelves. Like if you think of coffee, when you walk into a coffee shop, they all look like brown and orange and yellow and like it all looks the same. And so I wanted to stand out. It's really important that people also know that Noowave is not a coffee company. The 10-year mission of Noowave and hopefully eventually sooner is to be a biohacking company.
Now, can you explain real quick what biohacking is in case someone doesn't know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's literally just hacking your biology. So if you like consume something that like theoretically makes you less stressed or run faster or feel smarter or anything like that, that's like the loose, shitty Greg Frontiero definition of biohacking.
Thank you.
No problem. And so like I'm just obsessed with this stuff. Like I have all the fitness trackers, sleep trackers. I'm always in float tanks, experiment with psychedelics, like you name it, and I did it. I'm very into like altered states and performance and trying to just get the most we can out of this one life that we have. So like that's my passion and interest. Like it's weird, I've never said these words before, but it's fun to say that and be like, oh yeah, it's true, this is my passion and this is what I care about.
So I'm thinking like biohacking. I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you here, but like biohacking, that seems like something dangerous or might have a bad public connotation to it. As someone who's not heard of biohacking before, it seems like it's really interesting. So do you think that there's this notion that it might be this bad thing when in reality you're definitely benefiting from it? You're living your best life.
Yeah, I guess like it's all contextual, right? Like if you are putting a computer chip in your brain on the version 1, like that might be bad because it's like not there yet. If
Right.
you are doing acid every single day for breakfast, like probably not a good idea. But if you can kind of find like a really nice balance, which I'm a huge believer in too, like all this Eastern Western philosophies that I like. You can go down any rabbit hole. It could be super, super dangerous or it could be just fine. Using our coffee as an example is probably like what all of our products will represent. Like it's pretty tame. Again, there's coffee, green tea, amino acids, and raw cacao. We're not talking about like methamphetamines and something like that stuff. We'll never go down that route, but we'll do something that will hopefully every one of our products, like the goal would be, does this make you feel 10% better?
So I want to talk about kind of marketing, right? You said you had a background in sales.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that useful when making or promoting a small business? Because I know there's a lot of people that I personally know that want to start a small business but don't know where to start, and they obviously don't have a sales background.
Yeah, like I don't think you need a sales background for starting a company. Like when you start a company, you will be forced to learn sales. Just that's it. Like you'll have to do it. Because if you don't care, so sales is another one of these things, maybe like biohacking, that gets a really terrible rap because there's a lot of bad actors in sales. There are a lot of people, and I think about teachers a lot with this. Teachers and salespeople are a lot of people who don't know what they want to do in life fall into these careers because they're sort of easy to get into, and they're sort of like not that person's passion, and they get really selfish about both endeavors, and they're not very good at what they do. And it's unfortunate because when you find a really good teacher or you find a really good salesperson, it's amazing.
So what would you say the characteristics of a great teacher or a great salesperson are?
Oh, it's the same thing. And I'm happy that I'm coming up with this on the fly. It's being a good listener.
Okay.
And caring enough about the person that you're talking to being successful.
Right.
So in sales, it's a little corny, it's a little hokey, but I was always a really good salesperson because my dad beat this into me. I'm very good at talking, but I was poor at listening. And he was really good at being like, if you listen to people, like truly listen to them and try to like have their best intentions in heart, you can actually like talk back to them. So, in sales, there's this whole like, yeah, we'll do whatever you want. We can do it. I'll read from the script. And if you want to do this, like, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And it's just this inherent mistrust because this person's telling me whatever I want to hear and I don't trust them. And it's like, whereas if you're listening and they say something like, at Yext, we had this product where we would sell you leads. It was your responsibility to close them. We would charge you for the lead. We would try not to charge you for garbage leads, but every now and then there'd be like, good ones and bad ones. So you'd be faced with paying $10 for 10 leads. That's $100. The idea is you could close one of these leads for $1,000. Like, great, you've made $900, right? So a lot of times people would ask you like, what happens if I don't close any leads? Yeah. And you could say, oh, you'll definitely close like 6, 7 leads. Like that person's lying to you. They're trying to like push you, make you sell you this grand vision. I would always say like, yeah, it's definitely a possibility. What I want to ask you is if 10 people called your store right now, like, what do you think would happen? And they'd be like, well, I'd probably close all of them. And I'd be like, okay, that means you're really good. I don't know if you'd close all of them. That if you did, then look, you should buy this right now. But let's say you don't. Let's say you close like one of them and like, this is what happens and da, 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 da. And I was like, with that being said, you have everything tracked. You can look at him like, the guy down the street from you did this. And this is what so I give him like real numbers. I would just like have an actual conversation with them being honest. And I would be like, there are definitely people that never close leads. Those people are not going to be out of business either way, with or without us. That's just a poor example of like what I'm trying to explain. But if you just like are honest and open with people, they sense that with you. And then what I did very successfully in my whole sales career was build those relationships. So I'd call like, say that guy back in a month, genuinely ask how it was working, give him some advice, tweaks his profile, da, 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 da. So I'm actually like adding some value here. Then I would just be like, hey, do you know any other plumbers? Do you know any other veterinarians? Do you know any other? And they'd be like, yes, of course. They're all my friends. Yes. And I would just build like that. So I was really good at like compounding relationships. That's probably like my superpower in life.
I like that. And I think that's important with podcasting too, because that's what I do. I call it the foot in the door effect, but by definition, that's not what it is. But for example, me knowing you and you liking our interview, you might say, hey, I know this guy who runs this company. He wants to join. And that's what I think people miss out on, especially in my generation and even your generation too, since you're younger. I think people don't realize that there's this potential for networking. That's not just, hey, I'm Aaron Hanania. Nice to see you. What are you? It's more like a friendship that like, hey, if I'm ever, let's say in like the East Coast, I'm like, hey, Greg, I'll be around town. Maybe we can maybe have coffee. There's like these connections that are built. So have you noticed that with Noowave that doing that style of networking has helped you out? And if so, what are some ways it's helped you, you think?
Dude, our company was built on networking. I mean, first of all, this interview alone is because of it. But I joined this writing group, long story short, and it's David Perel's Rite of Passage. He has this like really beautiful way with words. And so I'll probably not make this sound as nice, but he calls writing online a serendipity vehicle. Meaning like, you write these things online and for you, it might be videos and podcasts and writes these things that live online that sort of like work while you sleep or whatever you want to call it. But like somebody finds, Aaron's podcast and it's exactly what they were looking for. And they reach out to you and it's like, this is a really cool way to make a friend because it's like, you are essentially putting your true self out on the internet. And then someone's like resonating with actually like your deep thoughts and being like, I like you. Like that's much better than how we actually make friends in real life, which is like maybe you're at a bar or you're at the same class or something. All my best friends are just because I sat next to them in school. And like, that's how my relationships were formed. So it's really, really rewarding when you start something and you put your true self. I encourage everybody. There's a lot of people that want to make products and they don't want to put their name on it, or they don't want to put what I like to call skin in the game. Like you have to do it. And you're an expert at this as someone who's literally building a brand of themselves, right? Aaron's your brand. And so like, if you're doing that and you're doing it correctly and honestly, like the rewards are infinite because you're getting like sort of rewarded and getting these relationships with. So like someone like me and you, right? Like we're friends now because we both put our true selves out there. You're helping support my business. So like all of my, we haven't spent, we just started running ads this month.
You did. Okay.
Because it was my background and it's going quite well, but like we ran for 6 months and launched like super successfully, like sold out of our first run. We like covered our whole, we never basically paid $1 to start the business because we did pre-orders. And it was all because of relationships that I built online, relationships I built over the last 10 years. Those kind of compounded. Now I'm making like, I made like 100 legitimately good new friends in 2020, which is impressive because we didn't really get outside much.
I like that. And, you know, I think what we're talking about is in that like networking and our brand as a self. I think people often get confused with what we do versus self-promotion and egotism, right? Because to sell your brand, you have to be not afraid to walk up to your friend and say, hey, by the way, I just made a coffee brand. You should try it. You know, then people think you're into yours. Well, that's not it. There's a very fine line, even as someone who's making their own brand, right? Is that, hey, I'm Aaron Hanania, you know, now I do all these great things, but it's trying to find the middle ground. And I think you've done it. So I know you have Michael Barbieri. So can you tell me how you met him, you know, how the influencers have helped your business? Since what I understand, most of what you do on the marketing end is done through influencers.
I wouldn't say that actually. And it's funny. This will make sense when I tell the story. But I met Mike online on Twitter, and so it was really random. I honestly don't know how we met. I want to say I ran the dumbest deal in the history of deals, which I'll never run again. And it was when the fly landed on Mike Pence's head during the thing, and I was like, "That's fucking hilarious." So I was like, first person who uses the code FLY for Flow State Coffee gets like 50% off, and I think Mike took it. And so I just reached out to him and he let me know what he was doing with Waldo. And I was like, oh, cool. I like definitely want to do influencer marketing, but I have no clue how. So I would love to outsource this to you and you could help me do it. He was the expert. I was not. And so he basically was kind enough to prove it to me because I was like, I don't know about giving $1,000 up front to influencers. It scares me. I just don't know. What my misconception of influencers, and this is something I'd love to talk to you about when we have more time.
Right, for sure.
Is like, whenever I have paid up front for an influencer, which is basically one time, the comment feed on the influencers is really happy for that influencer, which is cool, right? They're all like, yeah, Aaron, get your bag, baby. Like, let's go. You're killing it. You're sponsored. You're real. They don't necessarily buy our product. What I found really successful is my aunt who lives in Gloucester, Massachusetts, who loves us and is like bullying people into getting this thing. Like she's an influencer. So she's like our favorite influencer. With that said, because I was a former professional wrestler, my coach Lance Storm has tweeted out. He's got like a ton of followers. There are really good micro influencers like yourself and others that are like have that connection, like we talked about, with their audience, and they could tell it was like this is a way to directly support Aaron. I'm specifically thinking of Ben Greenman right now, who's an artist, and he just started sort of like his foray into making these drawings. And so he drew these beautiful drawings you can see on our Instagram of like sort of the coffee by a laptop or the coffee by an easel with some paint or the coffee in a music production studio. They're just like minimalist drawings and they're beautiful because that's what we really want the coffee to be, right? It's not what the coffee, it's what you do with it. That's it. Yeah. I love those.
That's beautiful. I like that. And I think too, like it's great because you help out a small and up and coming artist and they help you out. It's this mutual connection. And I think it's funny that you mentioned that like your aunt is an influencer because like people think that the word influencer means you have to have a large following, right? But that's not necessary. Like anyone can be an influencer. It's just how you assert your dominance over the people that mean a lot to you. So for example, your aunt, she has connections that listen to her when she said, hey, help my friend out here buy their coffee. And they do, just think that that's a sometimes false. Go ahead.
So no, I think it's important to say too, like our and I'll talk about the main way we market, but like I want to learn more about how to, and so I don't know if I should say this. I'll say this anyway on your podcast. We're building some software for some user generated content and for some influencer. My partner's a software engineer.
Do you want me to cut this part out of the podcast if it's off the record?
Everything I say is building in public,
right.
So I'm happy to. But something I noticed that was a failing on my end as a brand, and I bet you this happens all the time, and you're gonna probably smile when I say it's like I think brands are bad at building relationships with influencers. Yeah. I don't think that I've done a good job engaging with influencers, at educating the influencer, at like helping them help me. You know what I mean? And so I think about this all the time with influencers. Like every deal I have is sort of like, it's very nice. We'll make through a friend. They'll be kind enough to do a post. I won't sort of follow up on it. I won't like, I'm so bad at it right now. So we're
Right.
trying to build some software that'll help incentivize both people to like, maybe I give you like, I help you gamify it a little bit, or I help you have a path. Like, here are some points you need to hit. Here are some ways you can do it. Here are some assets you could use that is just like helpful.
I like
And that might be better. And so I'm sure that happens to you all the time, right?
yeah,
Brands will be like,
and I guess we can discuss that for a little bit, because I think that's what's cool about podcasts is we can go our own way here. And the idea with influencers, what I've noticed as a brand, right, is, for example, I can't say that your company's done it because you've done a great job of doing this. Is there's sometimes not a lot of interaction. They'll say, "Here's what we need." I've had, for example, an app reach out to me where they wanted to pay, let's say, an X amount of dollars for just a post, and they gave me the script, of what I had to say, but there's no interaction. There's just one of their agents said, "Here, do this for this money." And but what you did differently that you reached out, and you're like, "Here's this," and then and you had conversations, if I had any questions. And I think that's what Noowave does well, and that I wish more in brands, so if there's any brands listening, is yeah, it's going to take time, right? Yeah, it's going to take a significant time, but it's worth it to cultivate that interaction, which is what I think you're trying to achieve there.
the other thing is too, is like, so one thing I think that I don't know if it's like, this is definitely not a superpower of mine, but something I think about all the time. So I think I try to do the best I can with this is, everything we do, I think about the customer first. Like when it's our website, there are many things we do with the checkout where I'm like, this is costing us more money. Like we accept any kind of payment, which like we could just do Shopify payments and it would be a lot more money for us. So we'll do PayPal, we'll do Apple, and we'll lose like good amount of money for certain things. But I was like, you know what? If I'm a customer, like having it be frictionless and easy, whenever you go to a website to buy something, it's just easy. It's so nice. And it's like, I hate when somebody tries to make me give their email first. I hate when someone tries to do these predatory things. And so anything that I hate, I'm like, my customers will hate too. So I just try to build towards that. And that's been successful. Same thing with you guys, right? Like when I'm like thinking about an influencer, like how fucking dare me like reach out to you and be like, here's a script. It's fucking insane. Like you literally like talk for a living and it's your voice and people follow you because they like you. They're not gonna like my script. They're gonna like my points. Like I would love you to try the product and tell me what you think. One, because we've only been around for 6 months, the feedback's useful. Right. And then two, like there might be some like really, it's happened so many times on our website. We put like anxiety-free creative focus or something as a phrase because somebody said that as an influencer that we gave it to and they said it. And I was like, I love that. They have said it better than I could say myself. So like if you're a brand and you're giving your shit to an influencer, to tell them how to talk is the most like insane. There you go. That's us. Right. That was from oh God, who was it? I want to say Jonathan Hillis or something. It was Creator Cabins Online, but don't quote me on that. It's somebody who did it, and I was just like, that's better than any copy I have.
Exactly.
So yeah, like the whole thing, right? We're supposed to be this coffee for creativity. If you think about what that means, like creativity is a very broad term. There's a lot of freedom that comes with it, but that's like what Ben did, right? He just did his art with a little wink to Noowave. Right. And that would be like the dream if somebody wants to make like a Noowave rap or like a Noowave, TikTok thing or
like that.
Yeah, so one girl's doing a Noowave painting, and it's specifically not a Noowave painting. It's like, because I don't want like people just like
painting a coffee thing.
We have enough pictures of the bag of the coffee. If you go to our feed, like we don't need more of that. It is more like this is what I made on Noowave.
Oh, I like that.
You know what I mean? Like I drank this coffee and I made this painting. It's nothing to do with Noowave, but it's fueled by Noowave or whatever.
I like that idea. That's why I like your brand too. Is that like, well, I was going back to like the idea of like companies and whatnot. They're not very flexible. So, for example, if I were to say something marvelous, you like, because you have that background, you listen and you're like, I like that, and you put it to advantage, and that's what's making you successful. Is that most of these brands, when I give them ideas, for example, I like to help people on TikTok. That we've chatted before. I give them advice. I can 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh, sweet, thanks, and then they don't do it. Right. Or, they're like, okay.
I'm guilty of that because you were like, you got to start TikTok. And I was like, I totally will. But it's so, I feel like the meme of the Hello Fellow Kids with what's his name? I can't name that. Steve Buscemi, where he's just hello, and so I really I know I need to do it. I feel very inauthentic right now if I were to make a TikTok. And so I'm trying to learn. And the thing is, I think I had like, everyone has a misconception of TikTok, right? It's just these funny dances. When you get into that world, it's pretty crazy. There are many different types of TikTokers. And so the way to do it like my way, that I need to get on really quickly. But I just feel like, yeah, like thank God for people like you who are willing to help and willing to like actually tell me. You gave me some really actually actionable advice on how to TikTok, which I appreciate.
Right. And I like to see, because I know that a lot of people may not know how it works, right? And I'm not one of those people that is going to sell what I do. I don't like people that do that, where they're like, oh, I'll help you for $1,000, right? Like I could do that if I want, but I don't like that. I like doing, because I enjoy seeing where you're going to take it, and that's why TikTok is it's a great networking tool. People don't often realize that 9 out of the 10 times I get a guest on like a podcast, it's someone I scroll through on the For You page, like, yo, I love your content. Let's do it. So you can use that to your advantage too. There's some small businesses. There's a guitar pick, but just like a little pick on the back of a phone. There's all sorts of cool things.
Dude, there's so many, and there's so many like specific to coffee. There's so many soothing, beautiful TikTok coffee accounts out there, and really, really cool things that it's like a no-brainer to send them a bag. So it's not because I worked there and because I'm older. Like I love Twitter. Twitter's my TikTok. Like I have built 500 friendships on Twitter. I think this year, insane. Like so, if you look at my Twitter account, it's at SFW Greg, and the reason it's called at SFW Safe for Work Greg is because it's a separate Twitter account I made specifically for my writing and for the business, thinking that it was going to fail. So I was like, I'll make this account. I'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, I'll burn the account and move on. And now it's like my primary account because it's the opposite is true. Like it's my actual true self on the internet. I'm actually contributing, I'm actually posting, and I've met so many people.
How did you do that? Because I know I've used Twitter. I've tried to. For example, an actor tweeted me out, right? And what I've noticed with Twitter is it's hard to get that interaction, where on TikTok I figured out the secret. So what is your secret to getting people to interact or getting discovered on Twitter? Because there are Twitter influencers. There are people that they just post on Twitter.
Yeah, I think me and you have sort of like hinted on it just by talking through it. It's like what you care about, and like you're like I'm consistently tweeting, you're consistently making TikToks. Like that's the secret, right? Like consistently producing on that platform and engaging on that platform. Like I talk to everybody on Twitter. I actually have this weird little resolution this year where I'm trying to be more grateful, and so every day I try to hit 1 to 5 to 10, somewhere in that neighborhood, at least one every single day. I try to like help someone on the internet. So like I'll find like a tweet and I'll boost them, even if it's just like fuck yeah or good job. So every like day when I'm ending my day, I'm like, oh, I have to like be good on the internet, which I think is a good rule for people to have. If everybody did that and was trying to be like 1% nicer on the internet, we might have a really cool world. So it was silly, but it's weird. Like you said, the serendipity that like all of a sudden someone DMs you and, oh, by the way, I have a retail store in Brooklyn, or oh, I have this podcast, or oh, I have this. Like it's been really cool. Like I love Twitter because I'm making friends. I'm excited for what they're doing with audio and Spaces as a competitor to Clubhouse. I'm excited they have like I when I worked there, I can say that Jack, like of all the billionaire tech people like that dude gives a shit. And he what's that?
That the developer, Jack?
Jack Dorsey's the CEO of Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So he gives a fuck, like in the way that like I love TikTok, but it's like owned by what is it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's owned by ByteDance. It's like a Chinese mega corporation that's like for sure. Yeah, maybe the guy who owns that's really cool too. I don't know anything about it. But, I know Jack. I've known him like semi personally, and he cares about diversity. He cares about conversations. He cares about like the future of like the world, not just like numbers and advertising. And I just really like that company.
That's rare. So that's why. Are you inspired by him in the way you lead? Because I've noticed that from your description of how Jack ran his company, seems like how you're running Noowave, very hands-on. You're very much caring about what you're doing.
It's like I have to be hands-on. It's a one-person company, so it's like, if I don't work, it's nobody works. But you know what? Like when you said that, and I'm thinking about it now, like yeah, like if I could be uber successful guy, I think Jack does a really great balance between running a business, and he also like runs Square too, which is insane. He's the CEO of 2 companies. So like he does a really great job of like the business and like doing some bold stuff, and so much of it doesn't work. There are so many failed Twitter experiments that just like don't work, but it's like fuck, he tried. And there are so many other companies that are like Facebook that just play it safe, and they just are ad revenue, and they don't really care about new stuff. With that being said, virtual reality is pretty exciting, so we'll see what Mark does there. But I also think the other half of what Jack does is like I said, he cares. There's empathy in his leadership that I don't see with other massive CEOs. And I hope to always be like an empathetic person if I'm building this business. I hope I'm always like the down to earth guy. I have a bunch of really good friends and a lady that will not let me be too head up my own ass. So I'm lucky to have that. And I would love if I could be half the guy that Jack is as a CEO, that I'd be quite happy.
I really like that. I really like that. So what is the plan with Noowave? Where do you see, I know a lot of people don't like this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Where do you see yourself in 1, 5, 10, 15, and 40 years from now, when you're probably nearing retirement, what do you want Noowave to be?
One, I'll never retire. You can quote that forever. Like I could hit
like
$1 billion tomorrow, and I have to. I think when you retire, cognitively you decline.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you stop, using the brain, it's in muscle and it atrophies. And so, if you think about Noowave, it's specifically for cognitive health. So it's like,
right.
My whole goal in life is to keep going. So it's a good question. I think about it all the time. And so I give you a pretty like rock solid answer. I'm going to call my own shot here. So in a year, our goal this year is to have somewhere around like, $250,000 in revenue. We're well on our way to hit that, I think. And I would like to introduce another product that I have in mind. And this is sort of going to be setting the stage for what will eventually be, which is this giant biohacking company. In 5 years, I would like to be really paying myself well on this business, but authentic. It's just very important to me to have that balance of authentic, but like successful.
Right.
I believe you can be successful while being authentic. I don't believe you have to be a martyr and be like super like, not paying yourself well and like to impress, to signal that you're like better than any of these big companies. Exactly. But I think if you're a big company, especially like a 1 person to maybe we're 5 people at that point company, to really give a shit about everything. Mm-hmm. Like it's simple, but it's not easy. To give a fuck is simple, but not easy. So I want to always give a fuck. So in 5 years from now, I think we have quite a few products. I think we've established ourselves as a brand that is helping people have optimal mental health. I want to help people sleep better. I want to help people be a little bit less stressed. I want to help people, be a little bit sharper, make better decisions and things like that. So I imagine we have quite a few products. We're in some stores now, and we're doing quite well. And then in 10 years, I want to be like the definitive. The best example I have is not a good one because it's an outdated company, but if you think bodybuilding.com.
Okay.
When you want to get in shape, it's really important that like 90% of it is like eating right and having an exercise program. But for the last 10%, you need your fish oils, your protein powders. You might go to bodybuilding.com or Amazon now, right? So same thing with us. For mental health, we want people to be hydrated. We want people to sleep 9 hours. We want people to like really like to have some sort of mindfulness practice. When you get all that shit dialed in, for the last 10% to feel a little bit better, I want you to go to noowave.com. And so like that's sort of what we want to be, like the definitive stop for like products for optimal mental health or optimal mental performance or cognitive health or whatever term we've yet to coin. So I want to be like a really big biohacking company. If you can think of companies like Onnit, companies that even like Four Sigmatic, or a company like Bulletproof is probably the best example. This is where we want to kind of be in that ring.
I like it. And it's really important that you thought of these questions, right? Because a lot of people don't think about goals, or they think of unrealistic. I want to make $1 million next year. Realistically, we're not going to make $1 million. So I like that you have a very realistic set of goals, that are achievable, and you have very specific steps on how to get there. Because a lot of people don't, and it's not easy to do that. I'm sure you didn't wake up one morning like, let's make these goals. You've probably put a lot of effort into thinking about these goals,
Yeah, no, I have. It's also like, one, like I tend to be really conservative with my goals, and I do tend to like blow past them. So it's I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, if I should set bigger goals or if I should like continue to try to be humble and like just like I find myself never getting disappointed. So that's good.
It's a good thing.
The other thing is like, yeah, I think it's amazing what happens when you launch your own thing and put some skin in the game. Like my name's on this everywhere. There's no hiding. And so now it's almost like a little bit of accountability because I can't fuck up. So
exactly,
having that kind of stuff really does force you. And I'm sure you relate to this a lot because it's your name. It's like, this is you. And so everything you do is like a reflection on you. If I fuck over a customer, or if I like, you make a bad product, like it's me. It's not like
coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. I like that. And I want to backtrack just a little bit here. You were talking about the idea of like helping people on social media. How did you come up with that idea, or what sparked that? Like, hey, let's do this.
I found a really amazing, right? The company is called Ness Labs, and the CEO is called Anna, and she actually posted how to pronounce her last name, and I can't remember. Um, I'll share it with you if you remind me. And she posted a thing. I think my friend Nate Cadillac, who's a great designer in LA, retweeted this like way to do an annual look back instead of a New Year's resolution. And so it's like 9 boxing these buckets of health and mental, wellness and, finance and like your relationships and your spirituality and like all these like fields. And so you go through these fields and you feel like 1 out of 10, and you answer some questions about things that went well, things that could have been improved. And then in 2021, I'm like, okay, like I've looked at my year. I want to double down on all these things that brought me joy and happiness and worked well for me. And I want to eliminate all the things that didn't. 2021, I sat and I made like a 9 box sort of plan. And it's so crazy. Like everybody may know this and they may not know this. There's a real magic to when you write things down.
I agree.
Write things down and you're like, I'm going to do this. Something in your brain, I think, is just wired to look for those opportunities. Okay. And you sort of kind of realize it. So, I wrote down all these things for the company and for my health and for my relationships at home. And then I was kind of thinking about like, I guess the spirituality side of it. And I was like, what do I wish like I was more full? And it was things like getting involved more in the community, which would be cool just because it'd be good to meet people, and I started doing that with the event and stuff. And then I was thinking like just me personally, like what do I suck at? And I actually suck at being grateful for things. I suck at it because I'm so future oriented. I'm always thinking about the future. I never think about the past, which I think is a strong thing.
Yeah.
But with that means that I don't really think about like the gratitude and how lucky I am for so many things that have happened to me. And I'm very terrible at being present. So being grateful, like a gratitude practice, forces you to be present.
I like that.
Forces you to be like, what am I happy for right now? And it's really like anything else, like working out or like writing or doing these podcasts, it starts really dumb. You just kind of have to do it. Mm-hmm. You're not doing it very well. Like I'm grateful for like the sunshine or this bottle of water. I'm grateful I have a house. And then little by little, like I'm really grateful that I built these relationships online. I met these people like this and that. And it starts to get more real and starts to get more in depth, and you get better and better at it. And then what happens is just as like a result, you walk around happier. And so like I have definitely been doing better financially. I've been in better shape. But like on the happiness scale, like I don't remember a time in my life where I've ever been more happy. So I think it's important to kind of like take stock of all the things that you got that like.
I think that's so true. I started doing that a couple of years ago where I would write down everything I do in a day, like in a journal, but in a positive sense. Even something bad, make a positive. And I've noticed exactly what you're saying is you find that you're happy. And I find that like walking around, I appreciate things more. I'm more observant. Instead of just like, oh, I got an interview with Greg today. Oh, then I got another one tomorrow. Like I'm more like, I have an interview with Greg, but Greg could open some doors for me. I'm grateful that Greg took the time out of his day all of a sudden to do this podcast. And it changes how you think of things.
You know what else it does is like I'm obsessed with the idea of compounding, where it's like things get like better exponentially over time, and it's like investing, right? You just put in like $20 every month. You're like, it's like I don't even notice it. Then one day you look at your account and you've got $400,000 in 50 years. It's like compounding. Wow, it's awesome. Health, right? Like you work out at the gym every day. The days are long. You feel like nothing's progressing. But you look back at an old photo, you're like, oh shit, I used to be fat as fuck. Like I'm actually in pretty good shape now. Right. And relationships are the same way, right? It's like my best friends like never felt like it's just every day we go to the restaurants or we, right, we're on a group chat and we're talking and we're learning about each other, and these relationships on Twitter and someone like you that I meet on DM. It's like very superficial at first. Like you're going to help my brand. I'm going to, help your podcast. There's some cross promotion there. Then we do a podcast. Now we have a little bit more time to learn about each other. And like, like you said, next time you're in the East Coast, maybe we get a cup of coffee. Like this is a real friendship that's actually being developed. 10 years from now, maybe we launch a company together. Like you never know how things work out. And so I think like doing those little acts every day, just like going to the gym every day, compounds, and the relationships and like the goodwill and your mental state compounds. So it's all about compounding. Do the things every day, like fall in love with doing the thing, and then the results just come.
And that's why I do what I do, right? I don't do this just for the numbers. I do it because I get to meet really cool people, and being an influencer allows me to have those things. And I'm sure you've noticed this in our generations that people are one-sided on social media. I mean, they just post to get followers or this, but they don't take advantage of the fact that all those likes are actual people that know real people that have real world connections. And if you take a second, like you've done, and go, wait a minute, out of those 100 people, I bet if I DM 50, they'll say, thanks so much for reaching out to me. you 50 new doors have just opened versus just a closed room.
A
So
lot
I
more.
really like that idea of compounding happiness.
And yeah, not to be like an old person talking to a college kid, but like just to give you like a lot of credit, man. Like I wasn't doing what you were doing when I was your age, and like it's incredible. It's incredible the young people I'm meeting today. Paul Lacrone stands out specifically to me as a college kid. That's like you're doing so much right now that is going to pay off dividends in 50 years. When I just named all those, I think it's pretty cool that I work for Twitter. I'm not like a really smart guy to work at a giant company like that's really hard to do. You know how I got that job? Just by like hanging out with certain people when I was a young age and like making that connection. It was like that one meeting that I had, that one person in New York that I met that opened that door.
Exactly.
I think about every opportunity I've had in my life, it starts small with something like this. And like, this is not like me, it's everybody, right? Every one of us like has that relationships compound, stuff like that. And like what you're doing right now, more than like compounding relationships, or like maybe I open an opportunity for you in 50 years is, and this is maybe super, existential or whatever, but you are building your own life.
Exactly. 100%.
You're not a participatory person in your own life. It's not happening to you. My life happened to me for many years until I started kind of like writing it. You're like writing your own life at a young age. Really exciting when you're like choosing to make those people and meeting those connections that you get to like. I can't wait to see someone like you or Paul's life in 10 years from now. It's so cool to me that you guys are taking these risks and putting so much skin in the game at a young age. Like takes a lot of like balls to do that because I don't know, there's a lot more social pressure when you're younger.
There definitely is. And I think too, so I started doing this like junior year of high school, senior year of high school is when I really started. You know what? Let me not waste time. So I wrote a book, right? And I'm not trying to plug my book, but I'm saying that I was walking to school realizing, you know what? There's better things I can do with my time than sitting playing video games that a future me will be thankful for. And it seems like this is what you've done. A future Greg will look back on this Greg of 2021 and be like, damn, I'm happy he started out doing what he did because now look at the future Greg, And I think that kids and adults even too overlook the fact that it doesn't take a ton to do like what I'm doing, right? I'm not like traveling the world to do what I do. I just have to be knowledgeable in my time. Say, you know what? This is 40 minutes. I can't play video games, but I can do something great. And just like, what you were saying about that compound, you can do amazing things.
I wrote an article about this as well, just about like I'm not a very hardworking person, but I'm a very consistent person. And so like that's where I find a lot that it is. People think that I work really hard. I'm always working on new waves. I'm always like hustling. And I guess to some extent I am because it's like it's my business and I think about it 24/7.
Right.
But it's not very burnouty. Like I have plenty of time where I'm doing nothing. I'm going to go to the gym after we speak right now. I'll watch TV. Like I read comics and stuff like that. Like a pretty normal life. But I will never miss a day where I don't write for an hour. I'll never miss a day where I'm not doing one action. I have a little list of new wave stuff. Like do one of these things every day. Just have to reach out to someone, try to sell a bag, do this and that. I hit it every day. And like you said, 30 years from now, Greg is going to be so glad that I took these little baby steps and started that. I finally do feel like I'm taking action and being like I said, like there are people who just like play video games and they consume online. And there are people that produce online. They actually like create. You don't have to create 100% and not consume. It's not like I just don't do stuff.
No, right. 100%.
10% now that I'm producing, if everybody just did that, one, I think the internet would be a lot cooler to replace. So I'm a big fan of everyone should productize themselves, or everyone should sort of like kind of brand themselves online. They should try. You should try online.
Exactly.
Because I think that when people do that, then they get the feedback. Like everyone's gonna be a little bit kinder to other people when they realize other people are hustling and working too. Everyone's going to be a little bit more empathetic. And then everyone will also just be like, it'll just be like not the same 3 websites. It'll be like a really more fun, diverse place to live. And that's where I'm hoping we're going with all the open source stuff that's going on the internet right now.
Yeah, I think so too. Is that like the internet is it's this misbranded resource that has so much potential if you put it to the right use, right? We can both put it to the wrong use. We can just scroll through and do nothing. But if we take our time to use that same resource to our advantage, look what you've done, right? Had social media not been a thing, I don't know if New Wave Coffee, I know for sure I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you even. So, because we took the time to almost like think of a loophole, like how can we use this to our advantage? It's almost that forward thinking and that, that mindset that maybe you got that working in Twitter, perhaps, in a company that seems to like, how can we bend the rules in our favor?
No, I don't think I bent. In fact, if anything, I wish I bent the rules more. I wish I learned more at that company than like. I wish I was more interested in sort of like running ads and things that I could use more now, rather than so like bored by it. I would say what you and I think do really well is the authenticity behind what we do. So it's like, and like I said, it's participating instead of consuming. So it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm using social media to my advantage. It's more just like, what if I tried online? What if I just tried to be me online instead of like trying to be snarky or trying to get like the viral tweet of retweeting something that was kind of mean because it's funny? What if I just like put my whole self out there? And it's like, it's a lot of vulnerability online, where the more vulnerable you are online, and the more like yourself you are online, it compounds in that relationship way. People start responding to you. There are so many people that bought our coffee, not because they were trying to be their like biohacked best self, because they liked me and they liked my story and they liked like they resonated with something that I said. And so my whole thought process now in the present is like, how can I get my story out more? How can I get, you know, more parts of my personality across online? So maybe that's like a little bit of a cheat or a hack, but I always just thought of it like as my core value. I did a practice a long time ago with a therapist and with like some Tony Robbins-esque book or whatever, but it was like core values. I never thought, what are my core values? It's a really fun exercise if you actually sit down, like literally, like, what do I care about that I have nothing else. It has like, this is my way to live life happily, where like I could be a millionaire, I can make like 30 grand a year, but I would be like content. And for me, it's authenticity. It's being me. It's not like,
Being somebody
there's
else.
so many things I see. Like, you're a great example, right? Like, you're crushing TikTok. I'm like, fuck, I need to do TikTok, right? Like, if I was to get on there and be like, try to do it, it wouldn't go well. But when I sit there and I actually like take the time to learn about it, and I find, like I said, that like my angle and way to do the TikTok my way, it's gonna go great, because it's like people are gonna realize it's me and I'm trying and I care about it.
Right.
Whereas if I just try to cheat or gimmick people, it would be very unsuccessful.
I've just experimented, that's how I got to where I am. Is I've and still am like trying a whole bunch of different things. You figure out what works and you're like, okay, what doesn't work, and then you're like, this works, and you're kind of like, what if I do this? So I encourage you, when you start it, experiment, right? It's not necessarily, you're not going to get a million followers right away, but like there's no such thing as bad exposure. I mean, there is, but in
Nobody really remembers it. Yeah.
in regards though, there's no such thing as like bad exposure, right? Views are going to be helpful in the long run, but the hard part is trying to get views to equal sales. That difficult equation to solve.
Yeah, I think so too. Obviously, I have a product, so I think about that all the time. But I agree with what you said on iteration. Iteration's like different, right? So that is the most authentic thing, is to try and fail online. And if you look at what we do, I think the reason why you might have responded well to us and other people definitely do is I'm building in public really strongly. Like, there's no like privacy or secrets to Noowave. For a while, I was posting our financials. It felt like a little bit braggadocious at a certain point, and there's this really sweet spot where, as a business, you still need people's help financially. Like, I need you to buy these products. Like,
yeah, of course,
I will go out of business. But so like I would post like we're having our best sales months, and then like we stopped kind of getting repeat customers. They were just like, oh, he doesn't need us anymore. It's like, no, I still need you. But I like sharing that stuff, and I don't think it should be a secret. And if I can inspire one person, like my goal 10 years from now, if we sell Noowave, or if Noowave is just like a massive thing where I kind of take more projects on because I have a team behind it, one thing that I promise I will do is I'm going to find a way to teach people to productize themselves. And I would like to do that for free.
I like that.
Because the other side of that makes you a little bit like a life coach, or a little bit like a person that's trying to like get money from people online. The world does need more courses, but I'm not sure that I'm willing to commit to running one. But I would like to provide value there, because there's for so long I was a entrepreneur that wanted to do something, and I was waiting for someone to come and save me, and someone to kind of like show me the path, and nobody ever did. And so probably my first lesson might be like, no one's fucking coming to save you. So like, we're gonna make something today. And like, I'd like to push people. One of my favorite things to do, man, is I'll talk to these customers, and it's like research, right? How do you like the coffee? How do you like this? But then it comes like really quickly. What do you do? Like, what are you doing with this? What are you drinking with this? What do you? And they go, oh, I want to like write this screenplay. I did the best is the painting example that I was just giving you. Like, this girl stopped painting, just got a little bit of in a funk, didn't really want to do it anymore, kind of lost her passion for it. We were just talking about the coffee, and then we kind of got into like what she wants to do with it. And I was like, oh yeah, my big goal for Noowave is to have people use it as a physiological trigger. Like, they drink the coffee and boom, they go work on their thing. And the idea is that it's like fuel for your creation, and da da da. She's like, oh cool, I'll use this to go paint again. She started painting again.
Wow.
That's really cool. That's incredibly cool, because it's like one person on the internet meeting another stranger on the internet who just like kind of sparked that thing that makes them happy. Doing more of that at scale is something that is extremely interesting to me. I just have to, like I said, find a way to be authentic about it, make sure I'm not coming off as like a spammy I don't want to say Tony Robbins is spammy, but you know what I mean? Like I don't want to be like a guru.
Yeah, one way you can do that, which I'm thinking of, is like I've seen, and it's not often done well. People try, but they don't know the real way to do it. Is get her to tell a story, right? For example, and then turn it into a quick video, just like 40 seconds to like 2 minutes of how Noowave like changed her life. Get a whole bunch of those stories, because it's not like they're paid. These are legit people whose lives have been changed by your product. I think if you put that out, and I see that, I'm like, wow, if I know it's legit,
Right.
you know.
No, you're right. You're right. It's right into what I just said, right? People want to hear more about me, and it helps them, like helps me because it helps my business.
Right.
But it also like, yeah, like I don't do it enough, and it's again because part of you feels like a little bit of an imposter. You're just like I shouldn't like. It almost feels like you're taking advantage of these people. But to your point, like it's not like I made them say that. I didn't give them the script, right?
Exactly.
Like they offered a real way my product helped me. It's like that's why I made the fucking product. It helped me. Like so, like it's weird when it's yours. You feel almost like guilty for doing well on it, or weirdly like I don't. It's not my story to tell, but like it's such a one. They're just cool. It's just cool to say like this stupid little coffee someone bought on the internet like, might have sparked them to write their first blog online. Like that's if I could just do that and I can make if I make like $20,000 a year, like it would be okay rather than making like $250,000 at one of these big tech companies and just like feeling like a cog.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. I should try to document some of that stuff more. If anything, just to keep for myself, because when I look at that stuff, it really makes me happy. So it's a good way to keep going on the tough days.
And I like the way you're leading. You're not in it for the money. You're in it because like the experience almost, right? The experience is your money. Hearing those stories that's your $250,000 yearly paycheck right there. Just hearing that you changed someone's life, and that's why I do what I do, right? Because I like knowing that on the other end, if one person watches this podcast, I can end on the day. No, I've done my job for the day. Is that somebody is now taking away something from it. So my question here is, do you think that businesses and more so startups are creating themselves incorrectly with the basis that they're trying to focus on profit, not authenticity?
I had this conversation with a friend. I think it's really apt to talk about right now. I can't say anyone's doing something wrong or successful. Right. Everyone's different, right? What are your goals as a person? So for instance, there's like not evil person. There's a person out there who just wants to make money. They're not evil. They just want to make money. They love money. So they get involved in some like financial thing and it makes a ton of money. That person's successful. Mm-hmm. If there's a person that wants to make money and builds their company my way, they're not successful. They're not happy. They're not like doing what makes them happy. They're trying to be me and in hopes that like maybe it might make them money, but they're really like fucking up. Right. So for me, it's like Naval said this really well, but like let's use Elon Musk for example. Sure. Let's say like Elon Musk hates rockets. It's just like he like was building it and he just kind of like started it like 10 years ago and then like it got really popular. He made a ton of money. He's the richest man alive, exactly. But he fucking hates rockets. And now he's just like every day he has to make rockets. Like Elon Musk is not successful. He's a failure. But Elon Musk fucking loves rockets. So like, and dude's the most successful because he's making money and he's doing it his way and he loves what he does. And so I really think it's important to do that kind of assessment for yourself when you're starting a business. Like, what do I want? Like, Aaron, I want to make a lot of money with this. Like, yes, I'll be fine if I make $20,000 and have a bunch of good stories. I'll be a lot better if I make $1 million a year and have a bunch of good stories. Like, I'd like both, please. But like, I'm not trying to not make money. I think that's silly. I think money is good to have. I do think at a certain point, money stops mattering. I think it's also like, look, we're two white guys on a podcast. Like it's a very privileged thing to say money doesn't matter. And like, you know what I mean? Because I know a lot for me, I've made $0 a year and I've made $250,000 a year and everywhere in between. And I can tell you like, I'm like been on unemployment and I've needed it. And I know what it's like to really need money and have friends tell you money doesn't matter. And it makes you real angry because it's like, I don't know how I'm going to pay rent. So fuck you for like telling me like, follow your passion. I think over you making like $75,000 a year, $100,000 a year, once you kind of got the necessities and the basics covered, you can save some money. Exactly. It's definitely time to say like, what do I care about? And that's a privilege that I've been lucky to have. So I can kind of take that time. And so I would never tell anyone like the way they're doing their business is wrong. There's no wrong or right. The greatest thing about the internet now and the world we live in is that like there's no rules. The world's wide open. You can build anything. If you do anything, you can. This is my phrase that I launched the article that I love saying, and it's like my catchphrase now, but we can be the bands we want to hear. Like, what band do you want to hear? Make it. You can make the music you want to make. You can make the company you want to make. The way you're thinking about doing it. You want to do like NFTs but sell cheeseburgers. and you want to brand it after the Ninja Turtles, like that'll probably work. It's
Right.
crazy. There's so many people in the world now, and you realize that you're not so unique. You'll find your 1,000 true fans. So take a really, again, I mean, I know I'm talking a lot about this, but I care about this a lot. So it's more just like, I love the work that I do every day. If you think about Noowave, I love talking about like biotech. I love talking about nootropics. I love like these little dorky, neat products. I'm into sales and marketing, so I like talking about it. Like I'm really happy every single day. In the way that if I built some software, which is what I sold in the past, that like didn't do what I cared about at all, and it made a fuck ton of money, I wouldn't be very happy. So really important to like take the assessment of like, what about the work do you like? What work do you like doing? Do you like talking a lot? Do you like kind of being behind the scenes? Do you like, what do you like? Because that's what you got to fall in love with every day is the process.
Exactly.
The results will come.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
I really like that. I think that people sometimes overlook the idea that the process to get the product, you have to love the process, not the like. You could love the coffee, but if you absolutely hate having to do all this work, all the sales, you're like, I hate this, but it pays all. Then you're not doing it well. Versus you love the process, and in this case, you love the product, which is very important.
It also guarantees success. Like I won't lose, I will win, because it's like I'm gonna do this every day for 10 years. It would be really sad if I didn't get like somewhat successful in that decade. And it's like about thinking about those long-term gains. Like we talked about compounding. What can you do that will compound? What can you do every single day that you love the process, that like, even if it didn't pay you any money, or even if it paid you very little money, if it paid you enough money, the rest sort of you just figure out. You figure out really quickly. Like we just did our first event. That was like a very, very successful financial event. That was fun. So as soon as we left, I was like, more of those, like definitely more of those. Like there was literally no downside to that. I got to interact with people. I got to drink coffee with them. I'd see other business owners and meet them. That was very invigorating. And then, we made some cash and we made some new customers that'll come back. And so like, yeah, like do more of that. So I love like every day I wake up genuinely excited, like to go to work. And that's something I hadn't had for a very long time.
That's the way it should be. Now, do you have something you want to end on? Do you have like something, that you want to tell the audience, before we?
I feel like that was it. That was such a good crescendo.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So can you quick tell? So how can our customers and or people watching and listening to this podcast find Noowave?
Yeah. So you can go to our website. It's noowave.co. That's NOOWAVE.co. If you use, what is your code? What do we give you?
I think it's code AARONH, AARONH.
We'll confirm it. I think it is too.
Yeah.
And yeah, that'll get you 10% off, and it'll support Aaron directly as well. So that's like that'd be awesome. And then follow me on Twitter. It's SFW Greg. That's like where I'm most active. If you're a Twitter person, maybe I'll get more involved on TikTok, and Aaron can nudge me to do that more. It's a goal of mine for 2021 for sure. It is written down, so it will happen.
I like that. Well, thank you, Greg, for joining our podcast. We are very grateful, and thanks for listening.